This is Marlo Higgins, your Chief Inspirational Officer, and you can catch me this week on the Jesse T Show.
The mighty, the powerful, the understanding Marlo Higgins. Welcome to the Jesse T Show.
Hey, Jesse, thanks for having me. This is going to be a blast.
It is already a blast. I love our connection, our dynamic. You just know when you meet people that are going to do some big things together. And I felt that when we first connected. And I just want to share that enthusiasm of who you are and what you do with the world. So give us a little context and color. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, interesting. I think it's kind of hard to put ourselves in a box sometimes, but I started my journey in 2005. I call myself a triple crown entrepreneur. So how I have deemed that means that 2005, I started a company with two other business partners, and we launched a nationwide company. We had a concept or an idea. We had some venture capital money, which was very high risk.
Yep.
So any entrepreneur who's out there listening to this can really relate to kind of the stress that we were under, right? We had a goal and I had to reach it in the first 180 days. So I onboarded that opportunity as an entrepreneur to come on as the VP of sales in that partnership. And, my job was to start and oversee a sales team, and had never done that before. So it was the path most charted because I didn't know what I was doing. Earl Nightingale has a statement out that, if you spend an hour or study of research in your chosen field, you'll be a national expert in 5 years or less. And I adopted that. So I literally figured out how to become a VP of sales for this organization. And we were in 39 states. We developed an international market. We launched over in Germany, and we really were humming. I mean, it was wildly successful. I had 237 frontline reports, and we had to navigate a lot of things. I had a lot of branding ambassadors for a product that was not known in the marketplace, and so my job is, overseeing the sales team is not only teaching people how to be branding ambassadors. But really, when you're uncharted, there's a lot of rejection, a lot of failure, a lot of the unknowns. And I really learned a lot about being an entrepreneur and helping people with performance and leadership at that early start. 2008 comes around. It's a worldwide recession. And I like to say I doubled my income in a worldwide recession without a college education. I'm 100% self-taught, right? Growing up in a single parent household, didn't have a lot of resources to, have a lot. And so I was kind of a scrappy leader. And so 2008 came around. I was wooed by a company, and they were interested in having me have the same kind of sales success that I was having with our startup. And it was the last thing I wanted to do, but it was an opportunity to take a company, it was 6 years old, and rebrand it. And so when I onboarded, I took profits up 220% in 180 days. Now, the reason I share things in numbers is because numbers don't lie. That becomes our reality. And so those are actual documented benchmarks of things that I achieved. 2010 comes around. So I'm 2 years into that gig, and I get diagnosed with the brain tumor. It kind of, rocks my world and takes me out of the corporate space. And so I took a year as a professional patient. And then in 2011, I decided to launch my own brand, Triple Crown. So started a company, rebranded another, and launched my own.
Beautiful. There's a lot to unpack there. And it seems like, these hardships and struggles that we're faced with and presented with a lot of times, obviously they test so many things, but they're a lot of times laid in front of us for a cosmic reason, whether that's to be an inspiration to others, whether that's to, correct something in your life that was out of alignment. So did you feel or come to realizations on either of those, like why this might have been placed on you, like a calling that has come from it?
Jesse, that's poignant because absolutely, and I think as we've gotten to know each other, I chased a paycheck. So when I say I, doubled my income, I was operating from a scarcity mode. And so I was only about the money. I gave up all the passion that I was having about being an entrepreneur and the things that I was doing and the companies and people that I aligned with. And so it was by no mistake. I got into that job 24 months into it. I was absolutely miserable. And because I'm bullheaded and somebody who's just kind of that fierce, it took the diagnosis of a, CT scan on a Friday afternoon to say, you've got a, right wing spherical meningioma. It's a slow growing brain tumor. And, we need to look at things. And so absolutely. I mean, it took that big of a force to make me make a shift in life and to do what I do today.
It's, you know, some people's worst nightmare. And I've seen it pretty secondhandedly, but very close up. You know, my mom, she had her own fight with ovarian cancer that eventually, they gave her a year, it was kind of caught late, but she ended up fighting it for 8 years. And badass, stubborn, ex-military Vietnam vet, single mom, powerful. And so I think all of her intestinal fortitude and stubbornness really like helped her live for another 7 years. And it was interesting because my ex-wife and I, we would always want to like take care of her when it was time for her chemo treatment. So we would like move her in with us, and we were like, we're going to take care of mom. We're going to take care of mom. But in true mom fashion, she still took care of us. So she was cooking and cleaning and being present as much as she could until the chemo got the best of her, and she'd be down and out for like 2 or 3 days. And it was a beautiful, cathartic healing process for all of us to go through that, because it allowed to, do some generational healing and to do some conversations that we may not have had. And so as you went through your initial diagnosis, how did it feel? Like, how did it land for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody receives that news very well. I thought I was going in for fall allergies. I had a watery eye. I kind of had a plugged up ear. Really had no idea that it was something as serious as it was. And so nobody really expects that news. And at the time of the diagnosis, our boys were 13 and 15 years old, right? Really focused on them, and I did not think I would see our oldest son to his 16th birthday. So,
Wow.
I mean, the power that had over me, it was fierce. And, here's the thing. I'm not a reactionary person. So I wanted to absorb the information. I didn't want to scare them. So I needed to find out what this was all about. And so my approach, I mean, I knew about it for 3 months before he could even get the words out to say, hey, this is what's going on, and this is what I'm going to do about it, because, I didn't want to scare them. And I think as any parent, and as you described, even with your own mom, there's a level of protection that we want to give
No
them.
question.
And so things come out in a very unique way. And so I handled it very, in my own way. I probably should have out of the gates come out of it sooner, but still, even today, it's kind of hard to talk about, just because I don't know, it's just a tough journey, and it's something that, I don't know, I've just had to learn how to overcome, and I'm still not great at it. So,
Listen, you are powerful in just the way that you should be, and sharing this journey and the story with so many people that have been touched by this, whether personally or secondhandedly. And, it seems like everybody I know knows someone who's had some form of, scare or complication with it. And it's important, your story is part of your message. And I think
yeah.
that you tell it beautifully, and you're powerful, even if you don't feel in the moment that you might be. But just that courage to share, is vulnerability is a divine gift. So I'm very thankful that you're able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And I've come to live with the mantra that a setback is a setup for a comeback. And that setback in my life became my greatest comeback. And it positioned me, because when I came out of that diagnosis and I kind of got the all clear of, I can do things again. I just said, okay, God, like, what are you going to do with me? And I've got a lot left. And so he just said, you know what, be a chief inspirational officer. And that really means, I know how to coach people, right? One of my strengths on the strength finders is, I'm futuristic, and I'm an input, I'm relator. So taking all of those gifts, it just really made sense for me to start my own executive coaching practice. And that's what I do today. And that's the level that I serve. So I'm absolutely over the moon that things turned out the way that they did.
I'm very thankful for that as well, because we've connected, and I'm excited to see where our journey goes. And I know you're touching lives and helping people, and having you at maximum power and availability is a gift. And so I want to talk a little bit before we jump into the inspirational, like the fun, the next step after kind of getting clear. There's, in the entrepreneur community, in life in general, there's seasons of like lows for people. There's seasons of specifically, I can say for me, through the years as an entrepreneur, I'm in a people business. I'm in the wealth management business. I'm in a podcast business. I do this retreat where we meet once a quarter, and people come, and it's people, people, people. But there's a lot of times where it's quiet, and there's a lot of times where there's downtime, and there's time away from people, and you're not on, and you may be off actually. And so in that vein of like loneliness and quiet and dealing with reality, that moment of before the light switched, and I want to talk about like maybe what the muse was, but like when that light switched, before that moment, like when you were kind of going through, like, was there depression, anxiety? Was there, fear of, not making it, like, and did you have to, through like survival, did you have to put some plans together or put some protocols in place to get you to where you did become inspired to start this company?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're talking about there, Jesse, is like it really increased my fearlessness, right? And so, how can you say you're fearless, right? But I think more than anything, I came to a level of surrender in that space. And just knowing that, hey, this is bigger than me. I just have to figure it out. And like I said, I turned myself in what I deem a professional patient that year, looking like I'm selling pharmaceuticals, not getting them because I mean, it's that mindset of going in and, you don't want to look like all the sick patients in the hospital.
Right.
Right. And so for me, it was just like, how am I going to, how am I going to do this? And that was just, really that mental toughness of going into it. And I
Wow.
think that serves today, even, with entrepreneurs, we have to have a level of mental toughness that we have to tap into. And, when you talk about motivation, I think anybody who's listening to this is as entrepreneurs, we have to wake up and put a fire in our belly every day,
Hmm.
to either thrive or survive. It
Yep.
doesn't matter in what spectrum that you're on. And I think that there's just a space where, you have to reach deep and you have to have a lot of introspective thought and knowing and, yeah, and just release the tension, surrender to it all and see what happens.
I love that. Dig deep. You mentioned the term scrappy. We used to have this term in I was in a sales organization, like the scrappy dog mentality, PhD, poor, hungry, determined kind of thing. And there's some similar nuances that we've experienced in our careers, but just kind of touching on that vein, was there, was it your mom, being a single mom, having a whatever it takes mentality to make it work? Were there other mentors? Were there other people that instilled this? Was it innate? Were you born with this, whatever it takes mentality?
I think, yes, I think your environment feeds into that a lot. Like I said, I mean, born in California, lived in Utah, moved to Minnesota, ended up in Iowa. So, there was a transformation. All that was by the time I was 19. There wasn't really a set path, but I really had to learn how to figure it out pretty quickly
Yep.
and to be fiercely independent. And I think, I've never had the poor me syndrome. I've never played that poor me card ever, ever. I've always just realized that this is the circumstance and you have to make the most of it. Now, I definitely think that's a God-given thing. I don't think everybody is wired like that, but as far as being resourceful and independent, I think it just comes down to just trusting myself enough that I am going to figure it out and I am going to get what I need out of it. So,
Love it.
I think, yeah, it's,
Mindset truly is everything. Like looking at the poster behind me and thinking about how you decided not to show up as a patient. You decided to show up like, your mind believing that you weren't going to be sick or succumb to this. Like you were just going to keep making it happen and trying to be, I don't know if normal is the right word, but like playing the status quo as best you
yeah,
could, you know?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, and not letting, I think that's, you're describing defeat there. Like I was not going to be defeated. I was going to go into this and I was going to triumph no matter what the challenge. And I think that too, I mean, it feeds into the book, The Making of a Maverick, the book that I wrote about it, that unbridled kind of that fearless independent, that top 2%. It just takes a lot of grit and a lot of tenacity just to lean in and also be open at the same time. So there's a
Yep.
lot of mix that goes into it.
Yeah, yeah, and the surrender piece, which is huge in so many ways, in business and life, and outcomes, surrendering the outcome, but still working towards something. Like there's all this interplay.
Yeah.
You remind me of a buddy of mine. His name's Casanova Brooks. Casanova Brooks is out in Omaha. He's a real estate investor. He's a podcast host, and he is a force of nature. And he is very, very similar to you. With he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and basically the doctors gave him like a week to live. And in his mind, he immediately said, I have two options. I'm going to beat this or I'm going to beat this. And he ended up beating it. And he's been cancer free for years. And then later on down the road, he was again hit with, he lost his mom. She passed away. He lost his job. And because he lost his job, the house that he was about to close on, who hadn't closed yet, lost income verification. So he lost his house, his job, and his mom all in the same week, years later, after beating stage 4 cancer. So you talk about these people like yourself, Marlo, and we get Casanova, and like my journey, which has been absolutely nuts. There's a reason why we're given these experiences. There's a reason why we were given these traumas. And I've learned recently through plant medicine and through some different work, my superpower is I've endured all this trauma so that I could learn how to heal, that I could turn around and heal other people. And there's a reason why you're here, and there's a reason why you're doing what you're doing.
Well, and that's why I've titled myself a chief inspirational officer, right? Like I just inspire other people and I know that. And again, that's a God trait. Like I was born with that. I've always had this ability to just kind of inspire the possible and always strengthen the positive optimistic muscle. And so I think I was being challenged by giving these different obstacles and barriers to overcome just to actually measure my strength to see how positive, how optimistic can I be,
Yep.
and I think it kind of comes full body, and so I really step into that and I own it. That I'm like your chief inspirational officer of like whatever you got, we got this.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
The mindset mentality means so much in so many ways. And a lot of times it's like all we have, right?
Well, it is. And, success, it all really comes down to it. It's like, it's all about the mind and it's all about how we position it. And I hate using the word control, but we do have the ability to like wake up in the morning and do you want to be bitter or better? And we choose that. And again, that's the mind that's choosing it. Then the body just follows it. So, there's a lot of power that goes into the mind.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And we're just starting to tap into a lot of it. So talk to me about that next pivot, the pivot towards chief inspiration officer. Like was there a vision? Was there just a knowing that you created a vision and kind of like, as you were going along, things started falling in place? Like, how did that all come to fruition?
No, I was in business maybe 18 months, and I started out as a success coach,
Yeah.
and whatever, like everybody else is. And I was actually at a retreat with my mentor, Danielle Laporte. She is over in Canada. She came over from Vancouver and did a 3-day retreat. So 72 hours. I got in the room. I mean, this is somebody I just put really stand tall on my platform because it was just somebody I really admired and respected. And we had gotten together for this event and it was dinner and there were like 35 women. It was very, somewhat intimate. And we had to get up and we had to introduce ourselves. Well, okay, the normal Marlo, like just starting out in my coaching practice, I was going to be the success coach, right? But something within me stood up and introduced myself as the chief inspirational officer.
Wow.
And it was just kind of like the law of divine. It just pulled me into that. And I really had this sense of knowing and belonging that really is truly who I am, no matter what the outcome or how you try to position it. That at the core was really how I wanted to show up. And that's how that name kind of came about. So somewhat just of a divine moment, really.
Divine inspiration lead to being the CIO, the
Correct.
inspiration officer.
Yeah, because I'm all business, and that's the sick part. Like I'm very business oriented, and not so much like I'm not that. I'm not a life coach. I'm not on that personal spectrum. So I was trying to say, how do I tie these two together? And that was really the way of how I did it.
That's beautiful. And so you were 18 months in, which
Yeah.
for so many entrepreneurs, we know that the overnight success takes 15 to 20 years. Like it's rare that you have a rocket. It's rare that you start something in the same year. It's like global. Like it just takes time. It's nurturing. It's life. It's stumbling and getting back up and dusting yourself off and saying, I'll do this different next time. It's falling down, but not quitting. Like, cause the only time I feel like you lose in business, if you choose, like, if you walk away from a business because you're selling it or because you're going to move and go do something else, like that's great. But if the business fails, it's just because a lot of times people just gave up. It's not even so much the things that happen inside. It's like, yes, you could take learning lessons, which I call the losses. The losses are learning lessons. But if you keep putting one foot in front of the other and you keep aspiring to be better and you surround yourself with your tribe and they're ahead of you and they're where you are and below the rule of thirds to help you grow, like it's really like, I don't want to say not easy because it's not easy, but it's definitely a lot more doable and set up for success. Yeah.
It is. I mean, so what you're describing there too, Jesse, it's expectation. So what do you expect of yourself? Because I think a lot of people go into that failure mode or that throw in the towel mode because they expected too much or they expected it too soon or they wanted more in a shorter period of time. But I think again, the journey, it is a journey, right? You have to be into it for the long haul. And I think that helps you with a level of endurance that's going to get you to where you need to go. And also expectation of success. Success whether we're succeeding or we're failing, the one thing that it teaches us is we're learning. And so again,
Yes.
managing our expectation. I mean, our expectation of like, maybe that was a failure, but you know what? I learned from it. So it really wasn't a failure, because guess what? I wouldn't have gotten that executive PhD without going through that lawsuit. And now I know. So again, it's just how you frame it, and it's how you come out on the other side. So it's all framing and mindset.
So after 18 months, when you were inspired and created the CIO, the Chief Inspiration Officer, what changed in your business moving forward, and what changed in your life?
Well, everything, it was kind of like that law of attraction. I think when I stepped into my space and I could really title it and say, this is how I'm showing up and how I serve, I think that just became a natural magnet. And so again, it was a validator that I was really showing up in my true purpose. I started the business. This was 10 years ago that I've been in this space. But just starting out, yeah, I was still kind of waffling. I wasn't 100% sure what to call myself and what those outcomes were. But, that was 10 years ago. I haven't changed the title, and it's been, I mean, nothing but an uphill climb from that point.
That's beautiful. It's a story of just continuing the process and not giving in, not giving up. I mean, there could have been multiple times where you could have thrown in the towel and been justified, you know?
All the time. Yeah, all the time. Because like you said, Jesse, it's not easy. But the good doesn't come from easy. It's because of those scrapes and those different stories that's where the endurance is, and the different levels of endurance for each one of us. And I love that. I'm, like I said, the scrappy leader, right? You're not going to just throw in the towel. You're going to say, okay, when's the next fall?
Yeah.
Because I got this. You
That,
can
that,
fall only so
oh,
many times.
so powerful having that self-belief, even in, especially in darker times where like it's hard to have self-belief. But if you could just find that shining light, stack gratitude. I woke up today. I may not have health, I may not have the life I want, but like I have another chance. And if you can start stacking gratitude, like that's how a lot of people can pull themselves out of a funk. But so, as far as the clients that you serve, who are you working with and how do you show up for them?
Yeah, I mean, high level, top VIP, top shelf service. I mean, I love people that are kind of at the top. And when I say that, people like me that, they've been through various levels of success, right? And maybe you're spinning your wheels, right? And you're a little frustrated and you're kind of wondering, like, what is that next step? Or do I even have anything left in me? And there's a lot more that's left inside. And again, that inspiration. So I'll tell you, inspiration is vision driven, motivation is goal driven. So when somebody, you know what, I'm not motivated. I'm just saying, okay, you don't have goals. You need to get really clear on your goals. But if you're not inspired, it simply means you don't have a picture of what's possible for yourself. And so even as I'm describing that, working with somebody who maybe thinks that they're kind of at the end of the road, when in essence, I can show you that there's probably 40% left inside of you that you still have left on the table. And that if you dig into it and we tap into it properly, okay, because I love to be peaceful, energized, empowered, and loved. Those are the 4 core words that describe our brand. We do it in such a way that it's really peaceful. That is when you actually kind of see the true light of your success.
It's interesting you bring up the 40% rule, but you use it in flip of a gentleman that I used to follow pretty heavily, and he changed my life during a time. Have you heard of David Goggins?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
So David Goggins, he is, now pretty much world famous, but he's done some of the most impossible things. Like in the military, he was, special forces for 3 different, branches of the military, from Air Force to Navy SEAL to Army Ranger. And he tried out for Delta, but he kind of cheated, and so Delta kicked him out. But like he could have made it, and all this different stuff. And so his whole story is, as people probably know, and as you know, is can't hurt me. And he's been through so much, and he's endured so much that he's turned it around and used it as fuel versus a headwind. It's a tailwind. It pushes him further. And I listened to that audiobook a couple of years ago, and my journey has been riddled like with crazy life experiences. And I don't know if I've shared them with you, but I've been through a lot of things. And I was shameful about some of those things. And I was kind of hiding them, but it was stunting my growth and stunting my healing. And as I come to find out, later on, one of my gifts is divine truth, and just being completely open, honest, sharing my story to heal people. I talk about my story of healing. And when I read that book, in the book, there was a challenge. It was 10 steps of, how to basically stop judging yourself, and how to not let people have control over you and be free.
Yeah.
But between David Goggins and my mentor, Patrick Tucker at the time, who was he's a fiduciary like I am, they motivated me to essentially start the podcast and also start sharing my journey of all those skeletons. And I can't tell you profoundly enough, there's no human language that can convey the message of how free I've become of my own judgment, my own fear, what others would think about me. And then because I've shared these scars, the people that have come into my life and the color it's given my life and the value it's given my life is immeasurable. So I think it's super important for people when they have that journey, if they feel called to share it, their stories, their mess is their message. Like it's for other people.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so many people relate in different ways, but here's the thing. The ones that are relating are the ones you're helping the most.
No question.
And yeah, and I fully believe in that. And I think there's just a lot of power in, doing what you're doing, Jesse, and bringing to light all of the different setbacks that you've experienced, because that inspires somebody who's listening to that message today, triumph through and get through and be the name like you're sharing that inspired somebody to do something great. And
No
so,
question.
yeah, I think there's definitely a message in that. And I believe in that ripple effect, right? Because when we can show up whole and complete, we become a ripple effect for other people. And that just is a beautiful extension for others to thrive with.
We call it a vortex of light. Vortex is like Sedona, where there's massive energy there, and light are beacons of light, like lighthouses that guide you away from trouble or bring you back to shore. And we our collective built this group based on our experiences and based on our things that we're trained in, so that we could turn around and like be a light for other people, and that ripple effect and changing the world one life at a time. And in my sales career, there was times where I got up on stage and I was talking to hundreds of people and all this different stuff, and my mentor at the time, he was like, you don't want to go in the room and try to change everyone's like mindset. You don't want to go and try to change everyone's heart, because you're not. He's like, if you can go into that room and literally just change the life of one person, you've done your job.
Well, absolutely. And I firmly believe in that. And that's like such great advice, because instead of trying to win over all 300, if you could just get three, and really on the backside of it, that's all you really need to
Yep.
impact change. That message for just maybe those three people in the room, you've done your job. And again, that's just helps you show up, because that that there's somebody that needs what you have to say.
It's that ripple effect. It's that if you change one life, how many did they go out and change? You change 10
Yeah.
people's lives, they change 100 people's lives, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, eventually change the world. And I think that's the path that we're on. But speaking about your path and your journey, you mentioned a couple books. What have you put out? What are the narratives, and like, what has that actually done being an author for you in your life?
Yeah, no, 2017, I published the book, The Making of a Maverick, Building Champions in Business and in Life. It was really important to me. And again, as we talk about mindset and fearlessness and all of these things, again, positioning that maverick spirit, that unbridled independent thinker, was really important to me. And I brought together in that book 6 client case studies, and I showed the different ways that they went through their journey as clients and the obstacles that they had in business and in life. And so it's a playbook of things, that the strategies that they learned to overcome those challenges. And together, I mean, it was a lot of fun to write the book, but it wasn't just about me. It's about the people that I was able to work through and having other people hear their messages. And so that was very, very powerful. And then we launched the podcast, 22 Motivational Minutes with Marlo. And, that's our brand performance podcast. So people can, again, listen in. Our brand vibrates at a frequency of action. So it's like, tips and pointers and things you can do, because when you work for people and with people who are stuck most of the time or on that hamster cage, and you're always trying to show the light or show the way, it's really important that they can tap into different resources like that. And so, yeah, we wrote the book. We have a YouTube channel, and you can see it at Marlo Higgins, your Chief Inspirational Officer. It's all interconnected, and our website shows that as well. So, yeah, the book is Making of a Maverick. We've got another one that is just going to be coming out and released this next year, titled, Do You Have What It Takes to Have It All? And I say that not from a boastful ego spirit, but what does it really take to have the things that you say that you want out of life? And that's what that book digs into.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what is being an author? What has it done for you in your professional and personal life?
Well, I think anybody tells you, I mean, it's your thoughts, your wisdom on paper, and it doesn't ever go away. Once it's published, it's out there. And it's I never thought I would see and say that I was an author ever. I mean, that just never was something I visioned for myself. But it's an absolute game changer. And there's just so much when somebody can read or learn something from you. And again, it's just your thoughts on paper. So it's I don't know, it's just another form of people to learn. And like I said, I mean, we have a YouTube channel because there's visual people, right? You've got the podcast because some people like to tap into an audio version. They like to read, so you get the book. So, when we built the brand, it was for entrepreneurs. There's various different modalities of learning. And so we kind of wanted to reach those all.
I love it. I love it. And for the podcast, what has that done for you in your life?
Podcasting's the bomb. I mean, I love it. I love it. Conversations are everything. I'm much more engaged in an audio version, and I'm always enriched with conversations. So I personally love to listen to podcasts. And I think there's just, like you said, Jesse, I mean, there's a synergy here. People can hear that, they can feel it. It's going to give them something that maybe a book won't. And so I think there's a lot of power in podcasting.
I love it. And is there anything that you want to share about like what you're working on coming out? I know you mentioned the book coming out again, the new one, but anything going on for 2021 or that you're looking forward to that you want to share?
Yeah, we're kind of switching things up a little bit. We have a new quiz that's going to be coming out. The book is coming together. There's also going to be a course that you're going to be able to be immersed in that's going to bring the principles of having it all together. And so, a lot of great things to look forward to. And so, to be determined, a little TBD coming into 2022.
A little teaser. Well, everybody who's listening and watching,
I'm leaving it at that.
Absolutely. Everybody's listening and watching. Definitely, I'll be the first one to say thank you for being you. Thank you for your light that you're shining in the world. Thank you for your courage, your vulnerability, and your badassery being that light that you are. So thank you so much for joining the show. I'm Jesse. She's Marlo. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of the Jesse T Show.